All right, we are going to get this started. Welcome to the third episode of Pumpkin Emoji. As always, Jeff Koval's here along with Rod, and we have Marn, who is a co-host of ARGonauts. Or is it? Yeah, ARGonauts.
It's ARGonauts.
ARG podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a little difficult to say ARGonauts.
I was going to say, that was me. See, that's something I always learned words wrong because I read a lot as a kid. So in high school, there was a lot of unlearning I had to do. So now when I just read something out loud the first time, I kind of just have to roll with it and trust myself on it.
ARGonauts.
There you go.
ARGonauts. I mean, we switch back and forth on the show for if we say ARG or ARG. Like we just don't have any consistency. But in order
No, that's great.
But in order for the pun to make sense, it has to be ARG.
Oh yeah, no, something's a
That's
little
true.
lost in translation without that.
True, very true. Okay, so before we get started, I wanna ask a favor of every single one of you that's watching right now. So, I don't know if y'all know, but Trump is doing the town hall on NBC. Biden is doing the town hall on ABC.
Oh shit,
So-
we're going up against the two big
Oh,
boys.
God.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
But here's the thing. I believe that us esteemed gamers can beat them in viewership. So go right now to twitter.com and make a call out post and let everybody know that Pumpkin Emoji is going on right now. Now, the reason I say this, it's a
The
joke.
real
We're not.
town hall.
Yeah, this is the real town hall. See, the thing that's going on right now is that for some reason I'm not able to post on Twitter. Maybe it's because I wish the Cheeto Man would die. I don't know. But I'm not able to post on Twitter right now. We'd really appreciate your support in spreading the word that this is happening right now.
And we try not to get political. We just know what's objectively best for the world.
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want people to come to our show and think that we know better than anybody. But anyway, here's a poem that I wrote from the perspective of God.
What?
It's a joke. It's
Coming
a
out
joke.
swinging today on the third episode of Pumpkin Emoji.
We don't even have the viewership for this kind of hubris.
I was gonna say, Marn, thank you for joining us as we personally tank our own careers.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Thank you for being the witness to this. But yeah,
What's the word? Like the justification that you give us a validation in doing this.
yes.
To be fair, this is the third, I think, Argonauts related thing I've recorded this year during some kind of like political debate or event. So like this just keeps happening.
So it's on brand. It's
So
absolutely
it's your
on brand.
At this point, it is on brand, I think.
You heard it here, folks. This is branded content by Argonauts. Oh
Let's see.
man.
I'm just making sure because sometimes there are audio dropping in the chat, so I'm just gonna get that out of the way so we're not talking to it. So you're not talking to a blank
Yes.
wall for.
Absolutely. My girlfriend's watching.
people are
Hello, sweetheart.
saying- Other people are now saying they can't post on Twitter, which I think just means that Twitter is still
Yeah.
fucked.
Well, that's kind of just for our whole realm of entertainment and media. It's like, could you imagine having like being ready for like a dead drop right now and then you can't post it?
Jesus. That'd be hard.
Oh boy.
Oh, somebody's hosting us right now.
Oh.
Amazing.
Oh, that might be me.
AC Sherman is hosting
Andrew,
us.
that's my co-host on Argonauts. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, that's awesome.
So is it just the two of you who mainly do the podcast?
Yeah. Yes, it is usually the two of us. We've done a couple episodes with other hosts from our network. We did one just like as a fun thing to do, and one because two of them made an ARG, and then when that ended, we brought them on and interviewed them. And we've done a couple like guest episodes with our creators, and that's pretty much it. We have some cool interview guests lined up for the future that I'm not gonna say anything else about
Ooh.
because we haven't settled on a date yet, and I want it to be a fun surprise.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Oh,
No,
that's
and
awesome.
I think that's great that, I mean, just like for a lot of friends of ours, people closer to our age group than the so-called adults who really know how the showbiz runs. People in their 40s and whatnot. I think it's great that people have the ability to host stuff like this. And I think especially for like our type of viewers, they're used to seeing a lot of ARG content and like that, those sort of stories played out if they're not watching it themselves through people like Nightmind on YouTube. So I think that's really cool that you guys have like something that like it's a very podcasts are becoming more popular, but 2 years ago I barely knew what one was. So the fact that like that's another outlet out there for people to enjoy this type of material, I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I as someone who works in an office basically by myself for 8 hours a day, I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh yeah, no, I used to work in a hospital, and I'd be watching YouTube or reading. So that's just like the next natural extension of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just depressed and I stay home a lot, so I listen to a lot of podcasts.
So he gets a lot of podcasts done anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get this underway. Today we're gonna be playing some SCP Unity in the
Oh yeah,
background, and let me stream that for y'all here in the where
the
for y'all,
Discord itself.
yeah, in the Discord itself, so y'all can see what's going on. Oh, cool. Which finally let you win, Miss Moribund.
Oh,
Moribund.
hi, Lore. I'm
I-
glad that Twitch let you in.
That's awesome. Welcome in. Stay a while.
I know our buddy from last time, Michael, their account was like locked to shit or something, so they were trying to hack in and get back, but they're here in spirit, so that's okay.
My
That's
friend
all that
L
counts.
wants to know if there are flashing lights in this game.
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I do not believe so. Would you? Should I switch to a
let me-
game that we know that doesn't have it? I'll switch. I have no problem with switching to another.
I am checking right now.
Okay. In the meantime, we'll just get started.
You know what? There's actually a lot of warnings for that kind of thing on the SCP test. So it's actually a good. I don't know. It says SCP test, not Unity. I'm not sure. I don't want to put somebody in a bad
Yeah,
position
me neither.
though.
Yep, closing it. Let's put something else. Hey, let's get started. While I do this, I'm just gonna ask the first question. The first question that I want to ask you, Marn, before we get into the real meat of the stuff we're doing here today, I just want to ask, for those of our viewers that don't know, what is, in your words, what is an ARG?
Loaded question.
I feel like Andrew and I explain it differently on like every single episode where we have to explain it, but like I always explain it as like it's a murder mystery dinner party, but the actors aren't allowed to touch you. Is basically like my shortest way of getting it across to people. Or it's like an escape room, but on the internet.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that makes it very accessible and easily for people who have no idea what it is to picture what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean,
I know. Oh, you go on.
Oh, that's how I like explained it to my parents. At least, like that kind of got it across to them.
Yeah, you got to frame it for the audience you're talking to, and that's your parents. I know when we were working on EMH, and people would ask me, "Oh, what's your series about?" It's like, well, do you have have an hour? So I would just say it's like Blair Witch, but online. Just think of it like that sort of thing. Like you go in thinking, "Is this real? What happened to them?" But you're under the guise of this story that's going on. I think something like a movie like The Blair Witch kind of immediately puts people in that. All right, so this is uncomfortable. It's shot as if it's really happening. XYZ.
Right, it gives you like an instant sort of mental position that you put yourself in.
I was gonna say, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say, and I think more broadly, it falls under the category of like immersive experimental storytelling.
I know it's funny because now that I'm thinking about the timing of it all, I think it was like really just before the the whole world-ending incident.
Yeah,
I
you know.
remember seeing on Reddit, and there's a couple friends. We're all in contact with our friend Aiden, and I remember he had kind of strong feelings on this whole topic of, like what's ARG versus unfiction versus transmedia narratives. And I think you can have a whole field day of describing what it is and what it isn't for yourself in an academic sense, in a entertainment sense. And I think some people get bogged down in the weeds of that as an argument, but I think it's more interesting than anything else. And I think it opens people's eyes up to what's actually possible to do with these types of stories and games and whatnot.
Yeah, Andrew and I have argued before on the podcast over like what constitutes, like, what is an ARG and what is a web series that has a forum.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Which
That's
is like,
very accurate.
yeah, which is like an ongoing thing on the show, because every time we cover a web series, he's like, all right, is this like, does this actually have puzzles, or is this like a web series with like an in-character forum? And it's like, sometimes that can be an ARG, I think, but also sometimes it's just like immersive fiction that like the people consuming it don't really have control over, which I would hesitate to call an ARG.
Right.
Yeah, I think people get really into like what was their own first personal experience with anything, like that's not linear media, and they might irrationally or wrongly or correctly say this is what an ARG is and dig their heels in. And I know, especially with everything in the world related to Slenderman, a lot of people believe, oh, it's a Slenderman web series, it's an ARG, and that's not the case. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing, but it causes a lot of confusion. Years down the line, when someone like you has an actual ARG podcast, and it's like, I don't know. I think people get frustrated with it, but I think it's either funny or interesting to actually have to pick it apart.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I completely agree. We got into it a lot when we were covering Everyman Hybrid for that exact reason.
I absolutely understand. When the creators themselves can't give you a straight answer on what something is, I think you have a blank check to go crazy on the definition yourself.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
and I feel like unfiction as kind of an umbrella term is good, because it kind of lets you skip that discourse of like, what is an ARG, what isn't an ARG.
Right. Funny enough, funny that we get into this topic like right in the beginning. There was this whole, I don't want to say argument back, what, it must have been like a year ago. Or
We're probably talking about
time.
the same exact like Reddit post. Go on.
Oh
No,
god.
no, no, not a Reddit post. It was a Twitter conversation.
Oh yeah,
With,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think we talked about this. The fact that people have a name for this thing, unfiction. A lot of the people I know go like, "Oh, I don't, I think calling it unfiction is really pretentious." Right?
That's exactly what the
And
conversation go.
yeah, and
Awesome.
I get it. And I get it. I understand wanting it to be art for art's sake without getting into the intellectual elitism of it all. However, when you have something, when you give something a name, you can now analyze it further. You can classify it together. You can put things under a category. Yes, there is the side of like, oh, maybe this is gonna get a little too elitist in a sense, but at the same time, you're also giving people the chance to look at a whole new umbrella of things. So many different projects that have in common many aspects, but then nobody really made the connection with simple terms. And then unfiction becomes this simple term of, now we can look at this whole category and understand what are the elements that compose it. What are the rules that have been set, and how do you break those rules with class? No?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think it's nice to have like that kind of blanket term, especially for stuff that might not necessarily be like a traditional ARG, but kind of fits in terms of like tone and somewhat content.
Yeah, I think umbrella terms like that really, really help because, kind of, beyond the scope of the conversation, but it's like David Lynch didn't bolt awake in bed in the 70s and were like, I'm a postmodern editor. Like these things last over conversations and studies and years of observation and enjoying this kind of media that the names stick. In 20 years, if people are even talking about these types of projects, is it going to be unfiction? Are they going to be known wholly as ARGs? It's like, might as well stake your place in the genre right now and make your argument for it, because
Absolutely.
it's not a finished conversation at all, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's also
Yeah. Go ahead,
it's,
Mark. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say it's also really funny because like the unforums and like the unfiction website existed like way before this like discourse ever happened.
No, that's the best part of it.
I never
It's
even
the
heard of it
protective
before the whole
term.
discussion.
It's like, yeah, no, and that's what's funny about it too, because it's all these different people's experiences, and it's like unfiction is such a pretentious term. It's like, yeah, maybe, but it was also around in like the 90s before any of these projects existed, so it does have a stake to that kind of claim.
Right.
Like the creator got it from somewhere, and now we're running with it 20, 30 years later.
Exactly. But my question is, right, I think this is something that, maybe I'm completely wrong about this and people do talk about it, but I think the thing that a lot of people don't think about is like, if you call it unfiction, does that detract from the value of the project? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, sure, just because it's pretentious, maybe the name is pretentious, but just because it is, like, does that make the thing automatically bad? Because if you're limiting yourself to now working with stuff that's pretentious in its own right.
Well, especially when these are like homemade projects, which in many cases they are. It's like we're essentially playing backyard wrestling with monsters, and it's like you want to get
Absolutely.
pretentious about something as goofy as that.
That is
Like,
literally
don't
what it
worry,
is.
yeah, don't worry about being pretentious or goofy, because the whole fucking thing is from the get-go.
I think ARGs deserve to be a little bit goofy. I think we've earned that at this point.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's the authenticity of it all, right? Like, if you're taking yourself too seriously, then what's the fucking point? Go make something professional then. If you're taking yourself that seriously, go make something professional. You really have the want for it, so do it.
And like I think that ARGs can have very clear-cut themes, and I think that they can be I don't want to say literary, but I can't think of a better term for it. Like I think all ARGs and unfiction can tell a good story that is immersive and like makes you care about the characters and has themes and a message. And
Mhm.
I also think that they don't have to be pretentious. I think that they can be goofy and fun in
Agreed.
addition to having themes.
They don't always have to
Absolutely.
be, as we joked about last time, Rod, flashing binary code and someone screaming "I am God" before
Yeah,
murdering your
yeah,
friend.
yeah.
It doesn't have to
Yes,
be horror.
it
Which
doesn't
my
have to
girlfriend
be that. Yeah.
Talia, she actually brings up what was it, an ecological ARG? It was like, there doesn't have to be huge stakes. You know, of course, I love this kind of stuff, but like every project doesn't have to be about the world ending. You don't have to. It doesn't have
Yes.
to be horror, and I think that's something that also catches a lot of people off guard as well when they first start this kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely
And
agree.
for the chat, I'll have to look it up, and if there's anything available, I'll link it in the post stream tweet we sent out for the Eco ARG.
And I feel like some of my favorite arcs that we've covered weren't horror and were like more character focused and like had humor and stuff. And like Andrew and I are making an ARG that is like ostensibly goofy in tone and content, and like people still care about it on I think a level that we didn't really expect when we started
Absolutely.
planning it.
Do
I mean,
you want to share the name of that, or is that still in pre-production?
Oh no, it's So it started in February, and it's currently kind of on hiatus due to like the world being
The world
hell.
ending.
Yeah. Basically what happened was we had a bunch of like real life dead drops planned, and it was literally like the week
Oh,
before the
no.
entire country went into lockdown.
Oh,
and
no.
and we were like talking to each other on a voice call. We were like, we'll still be able to do this in like 2 weeks, right? Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
still
2
be able
weeks.
to do this. And then like the entire country shut down.
Oh, no.
Uh, so if you want more information on that, there is a Google Doc that I can drop in the Twitch chat. You can also join our Discord, our Argonauts Discord server.
Oh, there you go.
And everything in there is everything about our ARG is in the ad break channel.
Oh, we got a sub.
Oh,
Velvet Eye gifted a tier 1 sub to Michael Anderson. That's awesome.
oh, hey, Michael.
Yeah.
It's a small
But yeah,
world
so
here.
the like trailhead or the whole like framing story of this ARG was that like, oh, we got like a mysterious ad on our podcast, and so we made a like an ad break channel where people can like talk about it, but it has become the like ARG talk channel. And like the premise of the ARG is that do you guys know about the secret Pepsi Navy?
What?
No.
Okay,
Did you say Pepsi Navy as in like the branch of the
Yes.
military?
Oh wait, no, I did. I thought you said Pepsi Baby.
Yeah, in the 1980s, the Soviet Union traded Pepsi like a whole Navy fleet in exchange for a bunch of Pepsi. It was like 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer.
No fucking
and,
way.
And so originally Andrew and I had a completely different ARG plotted out, and then 2 other hosts on our podcast network scooped us without knowing it and started their own ARG that was like essentially the plot of what we wanted ours to be.
Oh,
And we were like,
Oh.
and we were like, fuck, we
That's
gotta
the worst.
rethink our whole ARG. But it was good because then we came up with this like absolutely bonkers idea. And we were like, okay, we're gonna write an ARG where Pepsi never got rid of their navy, and they're now trying to become a world superpower.
I
That's incredible
absolutely
and
love
very
that.
topical.
So there's like I mean, people who read the doc will get to dig into some of this, and if you join the Discord channel, there's a lot of very kind people who will
Oh my
explain things to you.
god.
But there's a secret forum where you can talk about the Pepsi Navy and their conspiracy to take over the U.S. government. There is a secret Discord where you can mine Pep coins, the official currency of Pepsi, which is a real thing. Pepsi tried to do cryptocurrency a little while
I
ago.
actually I had a bag of like Doritos or something. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna get free money, and then I like threw it out or something. I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, and like a lot of it has become us kind of working in all of these like really goofy like capitalist things that Pepsi has done for real, and being like, oh, this is actually kind of horrifying when you think about it. We can like make something out of this.
Amazing.
Oh, Elle also points out there is the Pepsi riddle song, which is the official Pepsi account interacted with our players.
Oh no.
Because they
That's one of my favorite things is when unsuspecting like either brands or celebrities get
Oh
dragged into
my
an
God.
ARG.
because the official Pepsi account did like a thing a little while ago that they were like, hey, reply to this with like how you would propose to your significant other, and we'll give you an engagement ring made of like crystallized crystal Pepsi.
My
And
god.
as like a bit, we had one of our characters be like, hey, try to win this and you'll like rank up on the forums. And a bunch of people actually did go and reply to the account, and Elle wrote a Pepsi version of this like folk song, the riddle song, and then the Pepsi brand account recorded their own version of it and replied.
How did that even happen?
I don't know. It literally, they did it in like 2 hours. I don't understand.
Amazing.
And so we took audio clip of the song and we put it as autoplay music on the website. That's the trailhead for this ARG.
See, it's one of those things that it's like every so often, like somebody like one of like the wonderful people in our network of people who do goofy shit like this too. Like someone like Tim Sutton will tweet like, I hate these brand accounts, I'm so tired of them. And just like it's true. It's a little odd, it's a little off-putting to see like brands talking like teenagers to each other, but at the same time, crazy shit like that, like what happened to you happens too. So it's like, let's give this experiment another 10 years before we completely block all brands on site, but at the same time, don't trust them too much.
Yeah, the thing is, like, there's H Bomber Guy does a phenomenal, like, it's on like woke brands, and it's so freaking funny. But at the same time, every time that I see like two brands talking to each other that I happen to not like, I'm instantly like, it will block you, and you will never
see your competitor right now.
Exactly. That is literally something that happens to me. Like, if I get an ad that's like a second too long, I'm like, I'm buying from your competitor now. I'm sorry.
I have an entire mental list of companies or organizations I'll never buy to because their jingle irritated me once in 2013 when I was homesick with the fever.
I run a blacklist on a lot of like popular brand accounts on Twitter, so Twitter's just like started giving me the really weird ones. So I get there was a while, there was like a couple months period where I was getting exclusively ads for Cracker Barrel cheese. And that was the only thing I was getting ads for on Twitter.
Delicious.
That is amazing. I might need to utilize that block list. That sounds like it comes in handy, and that'd be something that a little takeaway piece of utility for the viewers tonight.
Jeff, you see this building? This is where I'm gonna throw you.
Yeah, we have to make a horror spin on this otherwise charming and calming game. So this is like a dystopian little medieval village. Dystopian back then, like Bear King, like maybe like Drows or something in D&D, something awful. I don't know. Which we're gonna fight to make the Drows a beloved race because they get shit on for for too long. That's besides the point. Absolutely. I was gonna say something. So one of you guys mentioned something in our first 20 minutes that it popped into my mind about I think it was about the whole not every ARG has to be horror, but it also got me thinking about like expectations about what an ARG is going to be based on people talking about it. And like if people are talking about Game of Thrones and you're obviously not an ARG, but just talking about a piece of media, people see Game of Thrones and they immediately think Lord of the Rings, something fantasy. They have an idea of what they're getting into. But I know between the two of you guys, personally, talking about Blazeball,
yeah,
so and so pitcher's headed explode, or the commissioner's dead, or shit like that. I'm like, oh my god, this sounds metal as hell. What is this? And then I catch one of Rod's streams, and it's like the same confusion and mild disappointment as when I first heard about Dwarf Fortress. It's like you hear like the dwarf orphans are escaping in the river, blah blah blah, and you open it up and it looks like you're hacking into the Pentagon. It's like this isn't like the fantasy escape movie I was I heard people talking about on Reddit or something.
Okay, so I'm gonna give my vision of it first as a newbie, and then I'll let Marn, the literal main head strategist of of the best team in all of baseball, the Baltimore Crabs.
I'm not the head strategist. I'm like the deputy strategist.
Okay, excuse me for being a noob then. I'm gonna make sure that everybody can see this because right now, I have Blazeball open.
Oh, me too.
I'm gonna let people see this on stream.
I don't like how it's infected.
It's amazing.
Everybody.
Okay, so, as you can see here, here's the best team of all time, Baltimore Crabs. You see a bunch of names like this.
I still see City Creator.
Oh, it's not. Oh, wait. I didn't. well, now everybody, including you guys, should be able to see this. So, Blaseball, the discipline era. So, the way it works is there's a bunch of fictional baseball teams, like the Baltimore Crabs, Hawaii Fridays, Chicago Firefighters. They're from Chicago. And the way it works is that you choose a favorite team, and then you place bets with like internet money on who you think is going to win the games, and you make a lot of money. With that money, exactly, and with that money, you get to, like, as far as I know, you get to vote on like blessings and decrees. It's like this dystopian future where baseball is played every single day, nonstop, every week, and then at the end of the week it stops because that's when the season ends. Um, yeah, it's season 10. It's been happening for 10 weeks, and it's already swept the nation. Um, and the way it works is that crazy shit happens. For example, this symbol right here means that there's a lot of birds. This is a solar eclipse. This is a blood rain. Um, the crabs have something known as the blood pity. During the bloodbath, this team must give stars to the team that finished last in their division. They have targeted shame, which means they'll start with negative runs the game after being shamed. This shit's insane. I love it.
It's like Twitch plays Magic the Gathering baseball cards.
So the way that I've been describing it is the SCP wiki for jocks.
Actual fantasy football.
Because like basically what you see on the site is what you get. Like, it started as just like a very fast baseball simulator, and then the fans can vote on different blessings and decrees in the election which change the rules of the game. So for instance, solar eclipses were not originally a thing. The fans voted to open the forbidden book, which gave them access to a heavily redacted book of the rules of baseball, but as a consequence of that, a solar eclipse washed over season 2 and umpires started incinerating players.
Oh my god.
Yes, and it's amazing.
And in the next season there was a decree that was just called Peanuts, and the description was just peanuts, and of course people voted for it because they wanted to know what peanuts did, and now we have an angry peanut god who is showing up and boss fighting people at the end of every season.
We're not joking.
Yeah, that's a pretty linear progression there.
Just so you understand, when I first joined, I was like, oh, I like Yellowstone, so I'm gonna go with the Yellowstone magic. Well, like, I didn't realize that Marn was like in the crabs, and I was like, I want to hang out with my friend, but only after the following things happen. I go into the magic, I find out they're the worst team in the entire league, but except for this one player called Annie Rowland, and I'm like, oh, cool, I guess I'll make her my idol because she's really good. Annie Rowland gets fucking incinerated, and then like an hour after I start playing the game, Annie Rowland gets incinerated, then this motherfucker shows up. His name is Bonk Jokes. Bonk Jokes! And then I'm like, I'm done. I'm gonna go be with the crabs now. So, I'm now with the crabs, and I love every single one of them. My favorite is Kennedy Loser. He's a loser. He's a loser.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys.
Exactly.
Nothing.
And so, like,
I like your silly words, Magic Man.
And so, like, it's really interesting to me because on the site, what you see is what you get, but like, the fan base has grown so much in the past, like, 3 months. Yeah, exponentially. There's like 17,000 people in the Discord or something like that. And it's a really interesting mix of like traditional sports fandom where a lot of people are in it to like bet on the teams and they're gonna vote for blessings that will make their teams better, which is basically what happened with the crabs. Like, we have a huge fan base and we put a lot of votes into making them better, and now we're one of the top teams in the league.
We are the top team.
Not right now. I think the Moist Talkers are still beating us.
Claws up.
But they're beating us by one.
By one game.
By one game.
57-23, 58-22. These are the Canada Moist Talkers. They represent all of Canada.
They represent all of Canada.
Yes. These are the teams.
So yeah, like some people are in it just as like traditional sports fans. Like they're gonna pick a team, they're gonna root for that team, they're gonna make the team better, which is like obviously not an option that you have in regular baseball. And some people are in it for like the fandom aspect where they're like, oh, all of these players to us are not just like random names generated by the website or like lines in a spreadsheet. They are like real people with personalities and backstories and thoughts and emotions. And so there is a baseball wiki where people can add stuff about like their favorite players and be like, oh, I think that Jessica Telephone is a time traveler and every single version of her exists all at once, which is like a real thing on Jessica Telephone's page.
Oh my god.
It's like a constructive
I
game
didn't know
jack,
that.
like
Yeah,
asking
yeah,
it
it
to be game
basically is.
jacked.
That's
Yeah.
what Andrew and I have said about it. Like the devs basically made like this very fast baseball simulator, and the fans were like, "We're gonna game jack this and make this like a real narrative with like 200 characters, and like
Yep.
each of them has their own story."
I mean,
It's so interesting to me.
like I was telling this story to Marn earlier as I was clearing up and I was doing like sound check with Marn before we started. And the thing is, as soon as I saw bonk jokes, my stupid brain was like, "Oh, it's Bonk Jones, not Bonk Jokes." So the first thing that I think about is like, "Oh, he's a detective. He's obviously a detective." And he came out right after Annie Roland gets incinerated. So I'm like, "Oh, he's here to get to the bottom of why Annie Roland was incinerated." You know, and they were friends, and he was dead, and then her heroic sacrifice brought him back from the dead. And I did a whole like, I love doing these little things, like a whole like audio thing of like, "Hey, sweetheart, I'm Bonk Jones. I'm a detective, and I'm a skeleton." Like that whole thing, and I'm like, and I just posted it, and then apparently now the Magic have decided somehow that he is a skeleton. That's like the biggest trending thing. I don't know if it's gonna trend that he's like a detective as well, but he's a skeleton now, so it's like it's really funny.
Amazed. So that's
And it's like,
but again, it just that sounds amazing, and I think if I could dig into that, I really appreciate the goofiness of that. But when
We'll
I
get you,
first,
we'll get you
I
into it. We'll get you
heard
into the
all of
Baltimore
that, and then I
Crabs.
looked at how it was presented. I'm like, wait.
yeah, like for sure. And like, I mean, part of the really interesting thing to me is that like the devs, they very often in fact kind of pick up on what the players are putting down, and they will like take things and run with them. Like I'm sure people have heard this because it's been explained in like a billion different baseball like explained videos, but like when they first implemented the idle board, it's like you can pay 200 coins or whatever and you can sit on a player who like whenever they get a home run or like a strikeout, you will get money. um and there's a top 20 idle board, and people realized that you can put dead people on the idle board. So you'll see right now, Tillman Henderson, who is the crab who most recently got incinerated, is now sitting at number 9, and he has a little skull and a flame next to him because he is dead. And in the season that was realized, there was a blessing for a team to steal a player who was sitting at number 14 on the idle board. So everyone was like, okay, we're going to get the first ever player who was incinerated to 14, and we're going to bring her back to life. And the devs were like, absolutely. Like, this will happen, but it will have consequences. And it did. It did have consequences. She came back to life, and there was like she had like a special status and started hitting people with pitches and murdering them, and it was awesome. It ruled.
That's
I have
awesome.
such a. I mean, I know I talked about it like what the hell am I reading? But I did have an appreciation for it just because of how excited it made so many people, like friends of mine. So I will appreciate them for just running with it.
It rules. It's
I
such
didn't
a
realize there
good-
was a character called Jalen Hot Dog Fingers.
Oh yeah, that's her. That's Jalen. She's the one who came back to life and started murdering people.
Amazing. Is she still playing?
Yeah.
Not for anything. They have an untapped resource if they could offer, if they don't sell custom jerseys for Blazeball already.
There is a website called Blaseball Cares that sells a bunch of fan-made custom merch, and all of the proceeds go to charity.
Oh, that's good too.
That's pretty amazing.
They also
Go
have a
ahead, go ahead.
Patreon tier that lets you submit names for their like random name generator.
That's brilliant. See, and this is just probably going to be running indefinitely. Or do you think there's any sort of story, like any sort of angle in that kind of way?
I mean, there is definitely like a wider story that they're telling. Like every Friday after regular games end, like the Peanut shows up and yells at us and like tells us to do something, and people are like, "All right, fuck, better do what the Peanut tells us to do." And last week there was like the big like after the championships, the site literally turned into a JRPG, and the winners of the championships had to battle the Peanuts like evil god team. And so that was fun. And we think that this week on after the championships, a team full of dead players is gonna have to battle the Peanut Gods team, but we're not sure about that yet.
Annie Rowland is gonna be the captain. Just watch.
Oh my god.
Um, before we continue, I do want to ask one question for our viewers that have been, mulling the idea of creating their own ARG or making their own show and whatnot. And I think this question goes both for you, Marn, but also for you, Jeff.
Well, I was going to say, I think I know what you're going to ask, and it's a good question to ask because seeing us talking about this right now, I'm like, I was literally going to message you, Ron, and be like, how do we get something like silly like this going? Like immediately wanting to jump into it, and it's like, nah, I think that's going to be touched upon what
Right.
you're about to ask.
I think the question I would ask is, regardless of the theme or the atmosphere of an ARG, and we're talking strictly mechanical, what are the elements, in your opinion, Mark, having seen and reviewed and dealt with so many different ARGs, what are the elements of a successful ARG?
Oh god. I I think you have to. So first of all, I think just like as a writer and talking from my writer brain, I think you have to have a really good mix of like suspense and tension with downtime. Like your players don't want to be constantly in suspense all the time. Like they're gonna get tired. And I think you have to really keep pacing in mind when it comes to ARGs. I think that for people to stay interested, you need to have like characters and a world they will connect to. And I think that you have to have some kind of high level of interactivity with that world and with those characters. Like the players have to feel like they're actually part of something.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's that's a good way of putting it because people, especially when things have such indefinite schedules, like, and it seems to be the this story of the year with all these types of things. It's like they start hot and heavy, and then life happens, and something that's updating weekly suddenly hasn't been updated in a month, hasn't been updated in a year, and it's like if people aren't hooked from the beginning, then you've lost them immediately, and it's not not necessarily your fault, but I think going into pre-production, you should give yourself some tools to not ever have to face down that problem without some sort of like minor release on the side you can use to stave off the angry hordes and everything. Pacing from that's my big takeaway from what you just said, and I agree with that.
Yeah, and I feel like in any kind of fiction, you have to like really make the audience and the people who are going to be immersed in it kind of feel like they're inhabiting the world that it's in.
Yeah, no, and that's when Rod asked the question, that's kind of where my mind went to. I think I'm just more hardwired towards the like horror or like higher stakes types of ARGs. But I think my element of a successful ARG is like an intense empathy for it, and I think that kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with what you were saying. Like you need to care about the world, but I think more to the point, if it's a typical human ran story, like we're not talking about like some weird conceptual, not weird, some different conceptual, like future ARG, you need to care about the people that the characters. So if it's one person or if it's a group of friends, and I think that might be more towards my preference for like horror in general, more so than ARGs. But I feel like that's the same type of thing. You're not gonna People aren't going to stick around for months without content unless
Right.
there's something keeping them there. And I think
Yeah.
caring about the characters is obviously going to be one of those things.
Yeah, like we we ended the first act of the Pepsi Navy ARG by killing like a fan favorite character who was like
Oh,
the
that's always fun.
gateway character into the ARG. And like literally a couple weeks ago someone posted in the chat like, "Oh man, I miss him." I was like,
That's
"Yeah."
the best feeling.
Wait, breaking news! Breaking news! Tillman Anderson is canon. The icon turns blue when the recently deceased Tillman is idled
Oh,
into that
jeez.
spot. Time for Necromancy 2, Tillman Boogaloo. Wait,
Are you
this is
reading this out of the crab chat?
yes, no, not from the crowd, from crowd Twitter. This is happening right now. Our viewers get to see this.
Oh my god.
Where, where is that
This
bastard?
means nothing to me, Rod.
There. Look, he's on 14 now.
We figured out that when you put we literally just as this stream was happening figured out that when you put dead players on those little icons on the board, icon light up and go and turn blue. that's
That's the
that's the
secret
only
to it
thing we
all.
figured out.
I couldn't go blue.
People are dead.
People have died, Rod. Oh my god. I got you, blue. Please, let me blaze. Let me blaze ball. Becky, please. Okay. One of the things that so we've gone through the idea of like what are the elements of a successful ARG. Now, I want to ask the other burning question, which is, what do you think are the biggest mistakes a new creator can make when creating an
God.
ARG? Like, what's the stuff that when you see it, you go, "Oh my god, this shit again"?
Cults. We have a running gag on Argonauts that like every other arg we cover has an evil cult in it, and Andrew and I are like, "Oh my god, we're so tired of cults being the antagonists."
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead, keep
fair.
going, keep going, keep
Yeah,
going.
no, I think well, on last time we kind of talked with Michael about this, and something that my first impulse to answer would be exactly like the chat just said, puzzles for the sake of puzzles. But
Yep.
they kind of changed my mind on the whole thing about like if it's a newer creator and whatnot. I'm not so cynical about them having very basic or done a million time puzzles. But I think so. To not give that softball answer, I think people tend to go into these things, and I know I had to, mitigate expectations a little for myself on various projects. You can't like you want to be ambitious, but you don't want to like bite off more than you can chew. I think when you first start a project like this, the world is your oyster, but you have to give yourself like realistic or reasonable constraints to what you're doing, because then it's going to be this convoluted mess that ultimately will implode upon itself. And maybe you can get away with it and keep running by the seat of your pants, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of projects like that build up a lot of things and then ultimately fall flat for interpersonal reasons or a lack of funding or just a lack of commitment, because these things become year-long projects.
Fair. That's fair. The
So
one
I
thing,
think a reasonable scope from the outset should be considered.
yes.
Yes.
However, I would bring up the point of this, and this is a bit. It sounds counterintuitive, and it sounds like it's like, oh, this could taint a reputation. Nobody knows who you are, first of all, when you first start, and that's the best thing in the world. Because if you fail, you know, we're not really gonna know. It's not like you had a great show before and then you came up with a new idea and it sucks. This is not The Mummy 3 Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, it's a it's a story that nobody really related to. It just didn't work. And it was your first try. If you are a new creator like that, I would almost emphasize, like, go big or go home. Like, fuck up, really
I,
fuck up, and
yeah.
see what you did that you were so enamored with, and be like, okay, maybe there is a way to make this work, but it's not the way I thought. Learning that lesson by failing, I think, is the strongest tool you have when you start off, because you are starting off exactly because of it. It's your first try, and you have the permission to be an idiot and just try something stupid. Maybe eventually you'll have a story that people really, really love, and it becomes the next sensation, the next Marble Hornets, or the next Everyman Hybrid, or the next Blaze Ball for that matter. And, who knows how many times, you know, the funny thing is, Monarch 52 was not the first time I tried to do something like that. The first time I
Mhm.
tried, I failed miserably. Miserably. And nobody has ever heard of that show. Nobody has ever watched it. And it's
Well,
out there.
we're gonna get the audience on that right now to reverse dox you for
Go for it. You'll never find out what it was.
that.
And if
Well,
you do, I'll go to your home and I'll beat you.
Oh no.
to that point though, and I think that's a great point, but I think whether or not you're known or you have pre-existing public work, I think something important is to not become addicted to the immediate feedback
Yes.
and
Agreed.
not the simple, the TLDR of what I'm about to say is don't read YouTube comments. But
Yes.
in
Do not.
reality, something like an ARG generally requires some sort of response to feedback, whether it's story or just to see how you're doing, because we don't get cable ratings, you don't get Amazon review, generally speaking, for these types of things. So you do have to pay attention to what the audience is saying, but not necessarily like how they're feeling if it conflicts with what you wanted to do from the
Absolutely.
outset.
I
And I
think
think that's very hard to do. It's just recently I finally managed to break the habit, and I don't even have an ongoing project going, and I still fall into the trap of not immediately, but constantly checking, like, oh, so and so message board, so and so forum, so and so, hashtag, just to see, like, what are people talking about this thing we might have worked on. And it's hard not to take that personally. And I think,
absolutely.
especially when a project is first starting, you can't start listening to that noise, because you're going to be bending yourself, in every direction, and be a really funny shape at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny enough, like, even like, I don't want to, Jeff and I are currently working on a thing, just him and I. And the funniest thing was that as soon as it came out, I heard, like, one of the comments was like, "Man, your audio is really bad." And I'm like, there's a point to that. Is it actually bad? Like, I had this moment where I was actually thinking, like, oh man, did I fuck up? And it's like, why am I paying attention? It's just,
What was that about?
it's a telephone conversation. It's supposed to have, like, really bad audio for a
Oh yeah,
reason.
no, that's the thing, and that's especially the whole don't read YouTube comments. But now, unfortunately, the entire internet is becoming. Oh my god, my jersey's coming out. Sorry. The whole internet is becoming YouTube comments. You know,
Let
like
it out. Let it
I'm,
out.
I'm about to go nuclear on the extended side of my right-leaning family on
Oh
Facebook
God,
because
I
it's like
saw that.
you can't talk about anything without people being incendiary little fucks about everything.
Yep.
And it's like literally you have weaponized YouTube comments to become the normal level of discourse. And for better or worse, I think maintaining the communities, like Marn, it sounds like you have a pretty good podcast-based community for Argonauts. Like that's going to be like the new, well, not necessarily new. That's going to be the only kind of like frontier of conversation with potential strangers that doesn't make you want to pull your hair out because
Yeah.
you can't like I don't even on Twitter, and I think Rod, you and I might have talked about this, or I might have been talking to my Xbox friends, but it's just like you see like people like usually attractive people, young men, young women on TikTok that blow up overnight, and then it's like everything they tweet is like some send feet pics or something. It's like that sounds like such a miserable fucking experience of the internet that's like
Absolutely.
everything you do is hounded by a living breathing YouTube comment. And I do my best to avoid that sort of thing, shit post the people that deserve it, but just try to be friendly everywhere else. But
Yeah.
it's hard. You're
Don't be
talking
an
to a brick
asshole.
wall.
Don't be an asshole. I think that's like a rule that we have to remind ourselves of, because I don't know about you guys, but I've caught myself not being toxic, but just like allowing myself to become incendiary for reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
that's
it's like,
exactly what I'm getting at. It's like,
okay,
do I just soft block these people and get on with my life, or do I do my freaking scarlet letter, burn it all down type of thing? Like, I don't know.
I will say this, it's free to walk away from Twitter. You could just
yes,
like get up and go outside and take a
No,
walk.
absolutely, and that's a good point too. I think people definitely become addicted to social media, and more. You're absolutely right. But in my mind, in my interactions, it's generally positive. It's this
Oh yeah.
these are the
Same.
observations I see about
yeah,
these
absolutely.
people who get like some sort of fame thrusted upon them, sometimes overnight. I'm just saying, like, leading to our whole ARG creator conversation. It's like the best thing in the world in their mind at that time is like, I want to blow up, I want to have 1 million YouTube followers. And it's like, if they're hounding that sort of instant feedback, they're going to go insane if that
Oh, for
happens
sure.
because it's a cesspool.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. I joke a lot with my girlfriend about like, oh haha, like it would be really funny if our projects blew up and like got a huge fandom and people like clawing each other's eyes out on Tumblr over it. And it's like, we don't actually want that to happen. Like, it would be really funny, but like I don't think I ever want that level of like recognition, because that would just like
There
destroy me.
is a
I would
sweet spot. Where it is, I do not know, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not 2 million TikTok followers send feed pics. I know it's not that.
I think if I really do feel like if my stuff
How do
ever
you
got
know, Jeff? Have you ever been asked to send feet pics?
How did we meet, Rod?
Stop.
You said you wouldn't.
Stop. I told you not to bring this up. Ugh.
We'll get to the topic of feet pics in the next episode.
Yes, next episode it's the feet Mageddon. Feet Mageddon.
Oh my
Jesus.
God. I do think if my stuff ever got that popular, I would probably just like delete everything and just leave the internet.
And that's, I mean, I wouldn't blame you. And that's a kind of what we were discussing when we were talking to our friend, fellow creator Kay, is being able to have a distinctly creative, not personality, but like way of contacting you, like essentially making a business email for your entire creative venture. And I think how they're handling that is brilliant. But something for a lot of people, they're too far gone. It's like you're going to see my best friend Evan, he can't do anything anonymously to the ARG type of community anymore. Everyone's going to immediately recognize him if they had a taste of internet horror in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
Unfortunately now for someone like him, it's like, well, then everything you do, any interaction with strangers, you open yourself up to. And this is something we've dealt with to varying levels of leave me the fuck alone to, all right, it's endearing. It's like you're going to be posting Christmas pictures with your grandparents, and some kid you don't know is going to be like, where's Habit? And it's like, well, I don't want that. So how do you make that cut of like, this account is all for, creative followers and fans of our work. I'm going to be a complete ghost in my personal life. And I think, and this is probably too late for people who have their name out there. But if we're talking about creators at the beginning of their journey, I would recommend looking into that sort of designation of roles just for your own mental health and commitment to the bit.
Yeah.
One thing that like, and I think a lot of people, especially in the internet, especially today with, so to speak, fame being such a thing that like, oh, you finally got it, like I can't throw this opportunity away. It's like, I'm sorry, man, if somebody were to like be a dick about it, you can just tell them like, no, fuck you, get away from me. Okay, like nothing stops you from doing that, and you have the right to do that. Like
blocking people is free.
Oh my god,
yes.
blocking people is the most cathartic thing in all of online.
It is, but one thing that I feel like I shouldn't have to remind people, but I do, is that you, no matter what type of content you create, creating content is being an artist. Okay? You are making art, whether it's fine art, lowbrow, parody, whatever it is, you're making art. So as an artist, you're making these things and you're choosing to create art. People giving you fame is their choice. You're not held responsible for the fame that people choose to give you, or you're not supposed to give them anything just because they decided that you're now an idol to them. You don't owe anybody anything.
For sure.
People commenting like, "Can you send me a picture of your a video of your hair, like how it's styled?" And it's like, I could, but no,
I'm not going to. I'm not going to, and if you ask again, I'm getting a restraining order.
Yeah. Well, I think something that I got lost in my whole personal frustrations with certain aspects of that conversation. My whole bit is, if you're a creator in any sense, if you have any type of normal day job, it's an extension of you can't be wired 24/7. And even though the world and the communities you find yourself in might treat you like you should be wired, you have no obligation to them to be wired 24/7.
Yeah,
I think that's the whole feedback addiction that that's the crux of what I was getting at before I went on my Jersey laden tirade.
No. I see where you're coming from, Jeff. You didn't go on a tirade. You just explained how it was for you and the experiences you see. I think one thing that is very important, and this is not to get too deep into the subject, but there's a friend of mine who's a creator, and we here, the three of us, we all know this person. I don't know if you all know what's going on, but they have been the target of like people, bringing really fucked up shit that isn't true about them and trying to do like call outs and that kind of shit. And
not to be confused with the major fuck that guy that happened earlier.
Yes, no. Okay, I'm just gonna be plain with it. I'm not talking about Adam Rosner, okay? I'm not talking about him right now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about someone who actually didn't do the shit that they're being accused of. The thing about it is that they came up to me and they're like, well, how the fuck do I deal with this? And I had the good fortune and good peace of mind to look at them and say, just separate the two. You're an artist. Keep making your art. Forget about the people that are talking shit about you. Forget about the stuff that they're saying about you to other people. That is not going to change the fact that you didn't do those things and your art is still there. Focus on your journey and your own path. Stop giving the time of day.
Done, but definitely
yes, absolutely
way to go about things.
It's way easier said than done. But in the end, you're going to have to make a choice between, am I going to give these people the time of day, or am I going to just focus on the stuff I'm doing, the stuff I have to do? You know? And when you decide to just say fuck it and keep going your own way, those people are going to lose the power they had over you because you just don't care about them. It's the caring about the shit they're saying that gives them their power. Whereas your power comes from the fact that you create art. And you just got to keep doing that. Just keep creating.
This is very funny to me, as like I know that the two of you have like way bigger audiences than like anything that I do.
I do not.
does.
I do not. But go on.
This is very
Thank you.
funny.
Thank you for thinking that. I appreciate it.
This is very funny to me as like someone who writes web fiction and literally writes content for, I would say, probably 20 people who like, and like in that aspect of content creation, it is kind of a situation where like a lot of the people who read the work are like people I know and am friends with, either because we were friends and then they started reading my work, or because they started reading my work and then we became friends. So it is kind of like a funky content creator situation where like in the back of my mind, as I'm like writing this stuff, I'm like, oh, this person is gonna like flip the fuck out over this thing that I'm writing, and that's gonna be so much fun for me.
No, that's
Right.
excellent. And yeah, don't let I'm the old man yelling at clouds in this three-way conversation right here. So don't, yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know, like you can still access that. And I think
Oh yeah, for
especially if you
sure.
do get to develop these little types of communities of, you know, if not friends, then people you can at least relatively trust, then I think that's definitely always, you know, it's always possible to get back to that, or, you know, just achieve that. And I think if you can, then that's something to really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Not cherish, but, you know, appreciate that.
Honestly, I think the word is cherish. That's the
Yeah,
one
no,
word
it's a
that
good word.
comes. Because the thing is, like, fuck, like, you and I, Jeff. Like, well, the first time I talked to you, I was your friend. I was your fan, not your friend. And then we became friends. And it's like, I'm very thankful for that, because at the same time that I'm inspired by you, I'm also like, you're my buddy. You know, we can talk. I don't have to look at you and be like, the light is too much for my eyes. Like, no, it's Jeff.
Marn, you got about another 20 minutes of us doing this until we're both in tears and you're being our therapist. I just
Yep.
want to give you the heads
Yeah,
up.
just a heads
No,
up. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, Rob. But I think yeah, it is something to you just look back on those things and appreciate the. I mean, I think Marn, you might even be able to appreciate this, like just like looking at our life, you know, your life a year removed. It's like the people that you're talking to on a daily basis. It's like funny to think about, you know, how the hell did we achieve this? Like, how did we get to this point that, you know, I might have been writing, you know, you might have been writing fiction for this group of people, and now, you know, you might call some of them some of your better friends, or, you know, vice versa. It's like this is something that you do with your friends that not everybody else in the world does, and I think that's something to take away from it too, because, you know, a lot of people just, you know, they work a job for 40 years and call that a life, but, you know, people go out and do these, you know, on whatever scale, small or great. I think every little thing we do like this is something, you know, not normal and in a good way.
Yeah, and like, man, I was gonna say something, and oh, I know what I was gonna say. And Andrew, my co-host, was just saying the other day, like, it is wild to realize, like, as a small-time podcast host, that like people listen to other shows that you're on, and they like follow your projects because they're not just like a fan of the one show that you're on, they're like a fan of you as a
Yeah.
host, which is like
Yeah.
an insane thing to realize.
Just the idea that
That's
somebody is a
awesome.
fan of yours is like, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
You're wrong, but thank you.
Please reconsider, but I appreciate it.
Yes.
So
By the way, I made the game scary now.
there you go. We made it spooky. That is that bee has seen better
As seen,
days.
yeah, this bee fought in the Battle of the Somme. So, yep.
You know, if I had 10 minutes, I could convince President Trump the Shadow Moses incident was real.
Oh my god.
That's what the island reminded me of.
Yeah.
That's real. You know, we've been going for like an hour and 15. If we want to reel this back to, are there any lingering ARG issues or topics you got, Rod? Because I think we got the big ones. You know, the beginner mistakes, or things you don't like to see in ARG, or anyone in the chat have anything they want to pick Marn's brain about?
I think there's a couple of things that I do want to say. One of them is making sure that the story you're telling is yours to tell. And this can get sensitive to an extent very quickly, but there was this idea that I saw once that I almost came to blows with this dude. They wanted to make a web series. They invited me to make a web series. This in LA. Make a web series about the Underground Railroad of the Civil War. And
that's delicate.
yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, so who's writing it? And he's like, me. When I say this man was whiter than this,
I was gonna say whiter than me. You can use me as the litmus test for that.
okay, yeah, he was way whiter than you. You know, like this man, you turn off the lights, he shines. And there's not
that's kind of cool too, though.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
There's nothing wrong with his skin color. There's something wrong with the story he's trying to tell, not being his to tell. So
that's kind of out there.
One of the things that I would say is be careful of the stories that you're choosing to tell and make sure that they are yours to tell. This is not to say that, was he a bad writer? Yes, but that's not the point.
that's not directly related.
So even if you are a good writer, make sure that the story is yours to tell. Second, if you are a member of a marginalized community and you're thinking, but this story is not going to resonate with anybody, make it. Make the show. Take the story that you think only resonates with you and people that grew up in a very specific way, make it. Because there are stories out there that, the world is hungry to hear. They just don't know it yet. So, I'm a Mexican immigrant. My parents were undocumented, but I'm part of the Dreamers now. Make a story about that. Write it. Make a story about your experience. Make it heavily based on your experience as a dreamer. Make it heavily experienced on the difficulty that it is to be undocumented in the United States. Tell the story your parents went through.
Yeah, tell it for your sake, but just understand that that might resonate. That might become then don't put the pressure of that on your shoulders, but it's that could be someone's holy shit, that is I know this story. It's not exactly the same, but this was my story, and I haven't seen a story about that before.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I have felt. I'm currently in Brazil, and I'm well, the story that I was telling with Monarchs 52 has to happen in the United States because of these characters and because of the stuff that I already created for it. And I felt very discouraged of I'm not in the United States. I can't tell a story that's going to resonate. And then I decide to make a story about, a guy in quarantine with the government going insane and taking over the country. Little did I know, that story's on
news the next day.
Exactly. The story's in hiatus right now because I don't have the money for it. But at the same time, it's fuck, that story became extremely relevant from one day to the next, And at first I was this is just going to be a story that people that like The Division are going to which is a very specific video game. And it's no, actually people, it's a story that a lot of people can resonate with.
See themselves. And that's interesting you bring that up. Kay recently, might have been today, tweeted something along those lines. It's you can tell your story now. and especially if there's not a huge audience for it, in a month or years down the line, it might randomly catch fire. So, and I think that just goes back to our whole feedback loop thing from before. It's like don't get it, don't dwell on that too much because that might blow up, in a good way, randomly. So don't make that like the point of what is successful for you, because
Exactly.
one way or another that story will be told, eventually, even if you have to end it prematurely or not exactly how you want it. Get that story out there, even if it's not personal, even if it's just something goofy.
Exactly.
It's something like you would say,
Yeah.
Rod, just keep making it.
Yeah. And like
Keep making it.
trying and failing is fine. That's like the basis of basically all creative endeavors is you fuck up and then you learn.
And then
I
boom,
like
all of a sudden you make an amazing show and everybody's like, holy shit. Like, and then they go back and they watch your other stuff and they're like, oh my god, I slept on this. Like this was
Yeah.
really good and I just didn't have the time to watch it. And then
It
another
leads
thing to keep in
the
mind,
inspirations and
yeah,
developing of ideas and other platforms.
exactly. And another thing to remember, people not liking your stuff isn't always malicious. Sure, there can be like, oh, I think this is fucking stupid. Sometimes it can just be like, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to really engage with the story. Want
Yeah,
to,
so
but I can't.
I mean sometimes it's just like you don't enjoy the genre, which is fine.
Exactly. Even if the story's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's like you're making a sci-fi story and I don't like sci-fi and cool, fine.
yeah, and that's just like Rod was saying, make the story for you, because you'll drive yourself insane trying to please everybody, people who might not even enjoy the ARG in the first
Yeah.
place.
Let me use an example of something that it's funny and depressing at the same time when you think. When you think of Lord of the Rings, right? It came out in the 40s and it's still talked about. It's still so influential, it's so important for world culture. When you think of, for better or for worse, even if you think of Harry Potter, right? Fuck J.K. Rowling. But when you think of Harry Potter, it came out in 97, the first one, I think, 98. And it's still talked about, even though the movies are done a long time ago. Game of Thrones ended last year. How many times have you talked about it?
Yeah.
Like,
Set that one up.
nobody talks about it anymore. Okay, so think about the whole idea. Like, Game of Thrones was adored for years. People were insanely obsessed with it. Then all of a sudden, it's gone. All that adoration, all that love, completely gone because the ending got messed up. Like, admittedly, they fucked up.
Side note,
But
that's why I say I will never get a band tattoo until the entire original cast is unfortunately dead and in the ground for 10 years, because you don't know what kind of shit is going to pop out. Same reason I'm glad I never got like a Harry Potter tattoo or something.
Absolutely.
Because fuck J.K. Rowling.
See, the thing is, I would be okay with a Lord of the Rings tattoo because Tolkien's been dead for a while. So
Yeah.
I think skeletons are pretty. Skeletons are pretty in the ground if there were any skeletons. But like that's what you talk about Game of Thrones. It's like pour one out for all the Khaleesi's out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pour one out to everybody who tattooed the Targaryen symbol on their arms. And it's like,
to be fair, at least there are books, but likewise, they're not done. So who knows?
Yeah. And but that's the main thing that I want people to think about. Like, it's such an ephemeral thing, this fame or recognition,
attention.
Yeah, and if you're making art for the sake of that, like, I get it. It's fine and it's valid to make art for the money.
You're gonna have a bad time.
But that's the thing. It's okay if you want to make art for the money. But it's hard. It's hard. If you love what you're making it is going to be easier than if you're making it for money.
And I think that also you can make things that you love and make money off of them. Like, that is obviously the ideal, but it's very hard.
Yep. And you don't have to make it for money. Stop thinking you have to monetize yourself. Have a hobby.
Sure, But like also this is something I think about a lot as like someone who wants to be a published author. Like that's the dream, but also the traditional publishing world is like so gatekeepy as it is. It's like that probably isn't going to happen unless the entire industry gets overhauled, which sucks.
Hmm.
Yep, absolutely. And the thing is, and to piggyback off of that, right now, it is easier to make a story that more people will see than ever before.
Yeah.
Ever before. In any other moment of the past 10 years. 20, maybe. I wasn't here for more than 30. I've been here for 25, so give me a break. The idea is that right now, on hand, you have an extremely good camera. That's a phone. You also have the unlimited knowledge of all human race in the palm of your hand. That's the internet. Yeah, okay, porn, 4chan, and games. But also, you have access to the collective knowledge of all of mankind. Study shit. Research. Find a story that hasn't been told that you can tell. And make it. Make it. Make it look as dumb as it can be. But just make it. If you want to make a story, you have the tools at your disposal. And right now, unfortunately, people are home hungry for something to do.
One of my friends who is also like a tabletop writer and a ARG person made a joke recently that like the only ARGs that are getting made in quarantine right now are like people who sat on an unfinished ARG for like 10 years and finally have the time to finish making it,
Yep.
or ARGs that started pre-quarantine and immediately died because the creators were like, oh no, fuck, what do we do?
Yep.
Oh no.
I mean, I'm gonna give everybody in the chat a free idea for an ARG right now. Free idea. Free genius idea. I don't even want royalties.
Genius.
Make an ARG about a person who doesn't know the quarantine is happening, who doesn't know there's a virus out there, and they're completely immune and cannot catch the virus or pass it to somebody else. That's it. They have no idea what's going on. The world is just empty for them, and it's silly as hell. It's silly as shit. It's like this.
Dr. Manhattan. That's Mr. Magoo.
No, sort of like a Truman Show where, like, it's just like this person's Yes, Michael, the last man, but he's a himbo. He's a himbo. He's just walking around, and he's immune to coronavirus. He cannot pass it to anybody else. He has no idea why people are just running away from him constantly. In fact, he hasn't seen a person for the past month or so.
I don't know if you guys know this, but so Ben Drowned came back like basically as soon as lockdown started.
Oh boy.
And the guy who makes it, Alex Hall, actually had to change and I think maybe retcon some of the plot points because they were he accidentally wrote a plot that hit way too close to home for 2020.
Oh boy.
He like there was like kind of a quote unquote like real life 2020 plot taking place alongside the regular Ben Drown stuff that was like, hey, there's gonna be like a global pandemic that like the government knows about in advance, and there's gonna be like riots against injustice in the streets. And right now he's literally Michael's right, he's on rewrite hiatus number 3 because he kept putting stuff in his thing that like would then happen in real life at the time that the thing was coming out, and he was like, oh no.
Oh
What
my
black
god.
magic happened there?
It just Simpsons himself.
Like I feel a little bit bad for him because he sure did go and do that.
I feel horrible for him, but at the same time, like, I can't help but like, I don't know if this is an asshole thing of me, but it's like I can't help but want like, no, keep it in. Keep it in. What are you talking about? Just keep it in.
Because I mean, you're probably gonna. I guess saying it out loud like this sounds a little impersonal, but it's like you're gonna have probably the same net amount of people complaining that it's delayed that it's being insensitive. So it's kind of like do the quick math on that one and see which one you prefer.
I mean, the thing is, like, you're telling me that when the Black Plague was going around, people didn't make stories about the Black Plague?
What was the
You know?
Cameron, the 100 Stories in Solitude?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
freaking Red Mask of Death by Edgar Allan Poe. You know, it's
that
like,
was just when they first brought Taco Bell to Europe.
okay, listen. No, but it's like, the thing is, like, yes, it can sound insensitive, but at the same time, it was insensitive to make fucking comic books about World War II.
Yeah.
Captain America was there. You know, like, yeah.
I think what Rod's trying to say is just add Captain America and anything automatically becomes acceptable.
Yes. Yes. I don't know. It's just
Captain America could not save the Nicolas Cage 9/11 movie. I don't think that's a fix-all solution. No, but no, Rod, I totally get what you're saying. Sometimes topics shouldn't be off topic just because reality is so fucking bizarre now. Like if he was writing that for a year or whatever, I get it though. It's a hard place to be in, and a place I'm glad I'm not in.
Yeah, same. But to be fair, I wouldn't change it. Like I guess that's like, I guess that's not a nice thing to say, but at the same time, it's like some art is nice, some of it isn't. You know, like, of course, don't fucking put slurs and shit for no reason. Don't Tarantino yourself. But it's like,
Tarantino yourself.
Yeah, but it's like, look, like, freaking Every Man Hybrid has a moment where a guy eats a baby. Okay, like, that's fucked. But it's part of the story.
I think my crowning moment of viewer feedback is after everything was said and done. The question came up in either some comment or some tweet. It's like, what happened to the baby? Like the quote unquote actor. I'm like, I don't know if I responded, but I guess I'll spill the beans here. It's like, that was a fucking towel. Like, it was a pink towel wrapped up around Evan's arm. Like, there was no baby. We didn't borrow Steph the character's quote unquote real life baby or something for that scene.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first in Pumpkin Emoji exclusive. Jeff Colville, Every Man Hybrid Man, lied to you. He lied to you.
Well, you know what? I take that as a compliment, because what was the fucking movie, American Sniper, that Bradley Cooper was holding the fucking Cabbage Patch Kid, and it's like, I killed so many men. It's this one thing holding me to this mortal coil. It's like just sitting there staring at it with a fucking thousand-yard stare.
I think I talked about this on ARGonauts, but I really loved that one stream that you guys did where you talked about how you like couldn't figure out how to make people stop liking Habit, and you at one point like suggested that like every time he appears on screen, like giant text that says he ate the baby.
Remember, he ate the baby.
You gotta drive it home sometimes.
I mean, the second that you guys said, like, oh yeah, Habit worked with the Nazis, I'm like, yep.
That should have been it.
Exactly.
That should have been it. But
I mean, considering how the United States has gone over the past 4 years, it's not surprising.
Add a couple more atrocities to the list, but he would have just been a misunderstood soft boy.
Jesus Christ.
Didn't deserve it. Anything bad that could happen to Habit deserves it.
I mean,
but that's neither here nor there.
Like, I don't know.
That's such an ARG thing, though. Like, people getting attached to the worst characters.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And I get it too. It's fiction, and
it's the garbage. It's the garbage son. It's the garbage son syndrome. No, I think I'm coining this term right now, but it's like, you have this character, you're not supposed to like, but because you're not supposed to like, you love them.
Oh, fucking absolutely.
You know? So like that's the thing, right? Like, that's what happened to Ripley. People are not supposed to like Ripley. They fucking love him. They love Ripley. They brought him back from the dead. It's like...
So there you go, Rod. We'll coin that. The garbage son, also known as the inverse Scrappy-Doo theorem.
Yes. It's the garbage son syndrome. I'm coining that right now. You heard it here first. So habit is a symptom of the garbage son syndrome.
Habit is a symptom of the garbage son syndrome, but he is not the
The
disease.
cause. Ah! Yeah,
He might
okay.
be,
I'll
though.
give. No,
No,
I'll
no,
give
no,
you that.
said
He's
symptom.
not.
Symptom implies it's not the disease. Habit
Yes.
could be a symptom and disease of garbage son syndrome.
Yeah.
We're
No,
really going very deep in the weeds here.
Yes, I think garbage son syndrome began with Scar from Lion King.
Oh,
Everybody's supposed to
interesting.
hate Scar, and it's like, oh god, he's so cool. Or like Hades from
Well,
like
wasn't
most
he fucking? Who's the actor? Wasn't he?
James Woods, that asshole.
Or wasn't James Woods?
No, that was Hades. Never mind. Hades was James
Jeremy
Woods.
Jeremy Irons.
Jeremy Irons, yeah.
That sounds right.
Yes. Jeremy Irons. But yeah, garbage son syndrome. You make a character everybody's supposed to hate, and everybody ends
I'm
up in
just
love
gonna
with
throw
them.
it out there before we wrap up. I'm almost positive Garbage Son has existed before a 1994
Oh yeah, for sure.
animated
Oh, okay, yeah,
film,
sure,
but
yes.
I appreciate it. I think maybe for this conversation about like the Tumblr communities that we're honing in on when we have this conversation, I would say that's probably a good entry for modern day Garbage Son lovers.
Yes, absolutely.
You
Yield
you could
heartthrob.
totally trace garbage son lovers back to like Pride and Prejudice and Mr. Darcy.
I would even say
Yeah.
Sure.
Paradise
Cain and
Lost
Abel.
or the Bible.
Oh my god,
Cain
yes,
and
Paradise
Abel.
Lost and Satan.
Yes.
Satan was the
I wrote a whole
original
paper
Garbage
about
Son.
that.
He
um,
was a soft boy ooh cast from heaven.
Jesus Christ.
I literally wrote a whole paper on that in college.
Did you use that exact phrase? Because if you didn't, that was a
No.
missed opportunity.
I mean, Shadow the Hedgehog is a garbage son. In this essay, I will.
Bible, an 800-year-old document to Shadow the Hedgehog. Jesus Christ.
Shadow the Hedgehog is a misunderstood garbage son.
We
In
need
this
to make
essay, I will.
We need to make graphical supplements to this, like the spectrum of garbage son. Like,
Oh my God,
was
the
Jesus Christ a
pyramid.
garbage son? The
No, he
pyramid
was
of
not.
garbage son.
Garbage son? No. Jesus Christ was the first himbo. Okay?
I'll allow it.
I don't.
Who else?
He was a
Bernini.
carpenter.
Leonardo da Vinci was a garbage son. He was an asshole. No! Fucking Machiavelli! Machiavelli's an asshole. Everybody loves him.
I mean, I don't think they love him. They might appreciate him.
No.
We'll do a special episode about garbage sons and a
Okay.
presentation.
Oh my God.
Rob
Yes.
will have to make a PowerPoint presentation.
All right, fine, but you have to make a presentation on why people should hate Habit, and if it doesn't work,
Hey, I made my case in that live stream.
mm,
But you know what? I will belabor the point because it's something I truly believe in. So
yes,
fine.
agreed.
Accept
Okay,
it.
fine. I'll do Marn. You have to do something too.
Oh no.
Oh,
You-
at the very least, you have to kill one of the chat viewers. You have to pick somebody
Oh,
to
yeah.
sacrifice to
Yes.
the Pumpkin King.
Okay,
Oh
so
God.
before we proceed, I'd like to thank everybody who's been here so far, supporting us on the stream. If you haven't followed us yet and you think we deserve it, we would really appreciate that follow. If you have Twitch Prime and you're able to subscribe, we would also really appreciate that. You get Twitch Prime for free every time you subscribe for Amazon
Oh my
Prime.
God.
Couple of other things. We
Jeff Bezos is a garbage son.
Yeah.
No,
fuck it,
he's
that's
not. No, he's not. Jeff Bezos is just garbage. He's just garbage. He's just garbage. Another thing is, Marn, do you have a Patreon?
I do. So Argonauts has a Patreon. You can find it at patreon.com, PUHTRAYIN.com.
Patreon.
Look at that.
Because I pronounced Patreon wrong on our very first episode, and and Andrew bought the URL instantly.
That's brilliant.
My writing and the fiction stuff that I do with my girlfriend Alyssa, who's in the chat right now, also has a Patreon, which is patreon.com/card0press.
Okay. Would you mind putting your Patreon in the in our DMs so that I can
Yeah, I
put it
got
in
you.
chat?
Yeah, we always do a little follow-up tweet
Yeah.
with the person you're killing, and as well as any projects or like Rod's
Yes.
saying, your Patreon
Oh,
links and
yeah.
stuff like
So you have to choose a viewer right now on in the chat to execute. You're sacrificing them to the pumpkin god.
Oh no.
Yes,
Pumpkin
and if
King,
you
Pumpkin God, either
pumpkin
way.
god, yeah. If you don't do that, the pumpkin god will rise from underneath the earth's crust and eliminate all life on Earth. So
Oh god. Blake isn't here, and that would be my choice. My friend Blake and I are fated to one day meet in single combat and kill each other. In the absence of Blake, I
so
think
you don't have to you don't want to like lose that death match by killing them
It's
here.
true.
So
Oh, okay. My friend Kat has requested that I sacrifice them to
There you go.
God.
okay.
Can you post your Twitter in the chat, and we'll get along with your execution momentarily.
Yep.
Kat, I believe, is at Triple Jumpster on Twitter.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know who they are in this.
Cool.
In this.
Let me pull out my
chat.
sacrificial dagger. Give me a second. There it is. I don't know if anybody could hear that.
They
so
typically get a classic horror movie death, so
here it is.
check out the post stream tweet for the death. Marn, thank you so much. This was like all these have been such a blast, and I'm glad we could have finally got the chance to do this.
Oh,
this
hold
was
on.
Super fun.
I see they have entered my room, and I will proceed to kill them. Give me a second.
Jesus
Oh,
Christ!
give me a second. Here we go, and there it is.
So low effort.
We did it.
We did
One
it.
more person sacrificed. The pumpkin god is sated for another day.
For another 3 days.
Not 3 days. Our next
4 days.
Oh my
Something like
god. Oh my god. You know what time it is, Jeff? It's
What
time
time
to
is it?
announce it's time to announce who comes next. This one's a
Are
big
we gonna
one.
do that because this is our Thursday stream? We can dangle it over their head again.
Can we?
Yeah,
Because this
you
is a
can
big
announce it,
one.
'cause I can hear how excited you are. So
This
go
is a
ahead.
big one. So, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary folks, the next pumpkin emoji will take place on Tuesday, the 20th of October, and we will have among us, not the game, but among us here in the studio that is in space. We're currently flying in space in orbit. We will have some horror royalty join us as we welcome one of the original Blair Witch Project 5. We welcome Mike Manello and Nick Braccia, both of them who are working on their project Video Palace. We will welcome them here in Pumpkin Emoji. And I am beyond excited for this.
Yeah,
Beyond
we're
excited.
in a little over our heads, to be honest, but we'll have fun with it. It'll be a good one.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited.
Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binaries, thank you so much for being here. This has been Pumpkin Emoji episode 3. Marn, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on. This was so fun. I love
Of
to talk
course.
about ARGs.
Yeah. Okay.
Goodbye, our friends and enemies.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good night, my friends, and have a terrible night, my enemies. Good night.
Oh, can I say the thing that we say at the end of every Argonauts podcast?
Do it.
Sure. Do it.
That's ARGs, baby.
Good night.